I'm back with some lactose-free drinks. That's how you start 2019 on a diet, lactose-free, milk-based beverages. I'm very happy to be here. It is an honor, it is a pleasure to be here with you guys again for Jai Wednesdays 2019. Actually, now that we're talking about that, the slide is right here. You can sort of see that it's going to be the same as last year. I mean, Jai Wednesday started like a couple months ago, right? So, but same as before, same as 2018. It won't be all Wednesdays. It'll be modeled after Four Coder Fridays. If you haven't checked out Four Coder, you definitely should. I'll put up his stream on the chat. He's gonna return soon as well. I was talking to Alan in person a few days ago, so he will be back. It's all good. All right. Yeah, I'm gonna continue doing 5 p.m. PST, but as always, Twitter will determine the final time. And actually, I got a few emails from people just talking about the stream, giving me ideas. Very thankful for those. I haven't replied to a single one of those emails. But hopefully this weekend, now that I'm out of my vacation cave, I can go inside. I can slip myself in the inbox, ripping off the letter envelopes, and start replying back to your emails. So thank you for that. Now, let's see what else I have on my slides before we go back to programming. Oh my goodness. Come on, Prezi. There we go. Right. So as you know, these streams are specifically to show people the creation of the Jai programming language. Well, that's not true. It's to specifically show the creation of example games and example programs to show off how the Jai programming language works, right? Like in a real world context and by somebody who's not the designer, the original designer of the language, right? I think it's been very helpful. If I've read the emails correctly, if I'm reading into people's moods correctly, and just thoughts on the streams, they like that idea, and so I'm going to continue throughout the year making these games and programs just to show you guys how it works, but also to once the beta testing starts soon, people can have some cool games, some cool programs to learn Jai from, right? In addition to the website. So it'll be like a fun, happy-go-lucky Jai programming stream experience, for the beta testers with all these examples. So today we're going to slowly ramp up on Blotman work again. And that's basically what's going to be, the stream's going to be about, right? What are people saying? Could you have the stream like either 4 hours earlier or 8 hours later? No, man, I'm sorry. This is like the best time that I have. But I archive my streams for at least 60 days. So you have a lot of time to download the video or just watch it on your own time. The chat will be available, all of that stuff. So you can see what happened, right? For 60 days after the stream. All right. So let's actually go back to Blotman. I'm pretty motivated to do some programming. Blotman. Where is that? Examples, Blotman, right? I'm not even sure if it compiles because it's been a while. Can I increase the font? Looks like I can. There we go. As always, a little slow, and because we're always outputting all this debug information. I'm also using release mode for the LLVM backend, right? But even then, it's pretty fast. So actually, let me compile it on debug mode. Okay. Hooray! So the game's still working. Nothing much has changed since last time, right? I'll explain why later. I've been busy with other work at the company, right? But okay, looking good. And here, make sure the ghosts separate properly. Where's the red? There's the red ghost. Where's the green ghost? There's the green ghost. And okay, cool. So we got that going for us. Let's cancel. And let's open up our to-do list, right? Oops. We want to make sure we're using Jai. Okay. And then we're going to set the font as always. I'm going to make sure I leave this Vim window open so that I don't have to always change the font. But 16 should do fine for you guys. All right. Here we go. I think we were focusing on debug, right? Because now that we're going to fix bugs and add features to finish up the game, we want our debug visualization and our profiling, of which we have none, and our profiling to be solid, right? When we move into these new waters. So I think what we were doing is last stream was about tagging your code with notes, right? So for example, this procedure right here, simulate game, has a note called profile at the end of it. And when we compile Blotman, the meta program detects these notes across all these data structures or procedures and says, oh, it's a profile note, therefore I have to profile this function or procedure at runtime to see how long it took, right? So we were working on that kind of thing, right? But like just in general, what I want to do today is, let me run the game again. Is to have the ability to edit my structures through a file, right? So I'm not talking about hot reloading here. I'm not talking about a complicated JSON format. I mean, JSON isn't complicated comparatively if you're talking, about XML, right? JSON simpler than XML. But I noticed that Sokoban has a simpler format for a file, and you can use that file to edit all of your values and your structures that you care about at runtime, and then you can update those as needed. And that's better sometimes because when you have a large code base or a large enough code base with a whole bunch of code and data structures whose values are updated at runtime, and you want to edit those all the time because you're debugging or you're making a game, right? You're always changing things frame by frame. It becomes tedious to have to hunt down those structs and to edit those runtime values, right? So doing that through a file actually makes sense, right? As long as the file format is, pretty simple. So I can explain a little bit of just exactly how that works. So for example, let's go into Sokoban. For some reason, Commander and SVN is just not working well, because maybe at the bottom here, I'm not sure you guys can see this, but it says svn.exe. It always blocks me when I try to CD into Sokoban because it's just running beforehand. That doesn't sound like something SVN could do, right? It sounds like a Commander thing, and I just haven't messed with the settings. There we go. Okay. Let me compile Sokoban and make sure that it works. Well, that's right. There's been a fix happening. Let's do an update. That's also going to take a while. Das chunk. It's pronounced GIF, not GIF. People will say it's pronounced guy. Wait. I like that. Just like if you can avoid the entire GIF versus GIF conversation by just calling it guy, which makes little sense, but you just made that decision arbitrarily, and it's fun. I like that. That's my kind of thing. Yeah, Commander is just Con Emu plus extra stuff. It looks better. I feel like it's aesthetically pleasing. It's just it has these annoyances, right? Like how is it possible that I CD into Sokoban, svn.exe gets called, right? And it doesn't even update the repo for me. It just has me waiting there, right? I'm not blaming Commander necessarily, but it feels like a Commander setting. Maybe it's conemu. I don't know. Maybe it's something I did when I was messing with the settings. Because I have a bunch of fancy stuff, right? Like if I open up a new console, I have a bunch of fancy shit. So I can do, start. I have a Tekla startup command, which is pretty cool. And it opens up two tabs for me. The first tab is getting me directly to the compiler repo, and then the second tab is logging me in with an SSH key pair to our Linux build machine, right? Because I'm always on the Linux server putting out fires. Linux! So, I like that, but I don't know. Yeah, my boss also ripped on Commander. Um, but we still use it because like it's better than cmd.exe. Um, Zenith64, CMD plus bat files master race. I don't know, man. You need to enjoy the experience of using a good-looking, uh, what you call a terminal emulator. Um, I don't know. Have you heard of retro? Hold on. Have you heard of this one? Let me see if I can find it. I wish I could like actually have something like this. This one's excessive, but it's called Core Retro Term. Hold on. This is what streams are for going completely off track. Right? That's a bit too much, right? But like dial it down 50%, dial it down 70%. I don't care. You give me an experience visually like that, and that it's no lags and immediate, and I'd be happy, right? But I have a lot of problems with terminal emulators in the first place, right? Because they're contingent on the idea of a VT100 hardware from the 80s, right? Like they had this what was the RS-232 interface? I forget. It was a serial cable that went from the terminal hardware to the central processing unit of the mainframe computer. And that's how programs would talk to you, right? It was a terminal-oriented program that would send special characters down the serial pipeline over to your terminal for it to work. Like Emacs and Vim still pretends that that's the case. Like people talk about ncurses or whatever, or terminal. Those are all wrappers over a VT100 hardware terminal. Like we still have these things working the way that they do, right? Because of a popular terminal in the 1980s. And okay, I'm too young to be rat holing like this. So I am gonna move on to something else. Back to Sokoban, right? Okay. Well, back to Blotman actually. So I'm trying to tell you that in order to do the Blotman work for 2019, I want to be able to edit my struct values through a file, right? And to make that painless. And thankfully, Jai can make that painless. As far as I can tell, because Sokoban does this, right? So a big part of programming is being able to see your coworker's code and seeing whether you can borrow something useful, right? Because you don't need to repeat yourself and cost the company more money than you should cost. So so they have this thing. Let me go to run tree data. Yeah, cancel FM. You can't even get freaking key up events from terminals. Like you're bound to an outdated terminal protocol, right? That is, and the problem is like you can't even extend the protocol because you're talking about making kernel changes, right? So you have the Linux kernel. It has what's called a TTY/PTY subsystem, and they're basically character device files that are used to emulate the way in which VT100 terminals or any other terminal in the 80s and the mainframe computer would talk to each other. It just emulates all of that process, and then it also talks in very complex ways with the shell session, right? To handle signals, like the shell it's called the session leader, right? The shell is the session leader that's hooked up to the TTY driver, for example. And then it handles all these signals for the terminal-oriented program, like Vim or Emacs or whatever. So you have this whole mess that if you really want to fix it, what you need to do is embrace and extend the TTY driver. And for you to embrace and extend a TTY driver in order to make a new terminal protocol, you're going to have to create a loadable kernel module, right? LKM. And good luck and have fun writing a loadable kernel module just because you want your terminal to be just a little bit better, just to get a key up event, right? Good luck. So Sokoban run tree data, right, has a very specific, oh God, okay, has a very specific file called o.variables, right? And there's others, right? So there's just one called editor.variables. But the concept is that we have a .variables file, right? So if we open up o.variables, it'll open up on my other window. Hold on. And let me make sure that the size is 16. Okay. Right, here it is. Now it's interesting, my phone went off. Because you have a bunch of variables, right? And a variable is just a name and a value pair, right? And the value could be a float, it could be an integer actually, it could be a boolean, it could be a string. I think it could even be an array, but I don't think Blobman needs arrays because my structs don't have arrays inside them just yet, right? So you have a gameplay visuals folder. I'm going to give you some terminology. So this .variables file format accepts a few things. So .variables file format accepts comments, right, on a new line. So here is a comment, this is valid. It accepts, like I said, variables, which is a name value pair, and I gave you examples of the type of values that you can get in there. Yeah, for example, here's a boolean. And these variables have to live inside folders, right? Now folders is just this kind of thing. It's you prefix a folder name with a colon, a slash, and then the folder name. So my fancy wine folder, because I like to drink wine, right? And then I can tell about, Pinot Grigio and how much alcohol percentage it has, 14.1%. Chocolate wine, 100%. So you have these folders, and again, they're just like sections for your variables file, and then you have values there. Now, if I'm not mistaken, what happens is Sokoban has structs whose names match the folder names. In other words, you're gonna find, let me delete this before I commit it and people have to see that. There's gonna be a struct in the Sokoban source code called gameplay visuals. And let's have our screen and open up a source file. I'm not sure where that could be. Where am I? I'm in data. So let's open up source. And we go into Sokoban, literally Sokoban. Hold on. Sokoban.jai. Sokoban.jai. Excellent. Let's do a search for gameplay visuals, which again, it's this. Take a look here, top left. I'm gonna look for gameplay visuals, okay? On the source code here. So, yeah, there it is, right? So you have gameplay visuals, which is a struct. And it's a pretty large struct, actually. Well, it's not that large. Not at all. I've seen structs that are 3 times as large as this one. Actually, this is pretty long. Yeah, but I've seen structs at least twice as big. But you can see that the folder name is matching the struct name. And then you have variables like visual, position, duration here. Also showing here. And this is pretty clever because you have a default value. So if the Sokoban engine doesn't find your all.variables file, it's gonna have some default values for you, right? So when Sokoban engine is looking for how to set the gameplay visuals for the current game session, then here's here's like John declaring the struct gameplay visuals, right? And it's gonna inherit all of these default values. And so if the engine can't find this all.variables file, the game will still run with the gameplay visual specified at struct declaration time, which is pretty fun, right? But it doesn't matter because we do have all.variables, which means the engine's gonna ignore these default values and then set these, right? Which is what I want for Blockman. I want this. So this stream, we're gonna rip this off of, we're gonna borrow, yeah, we're gonna borrow this code and put it up and use it on Blockman, okay? Any questions? Any questions from the users? Yep, chocolate wine is the best wine. That's a good enough comment. Let's move on. So, all right. So we just need to find out how this is working, right? Like, how is it that when the game runs, the struct gets replaced, the struct values get replaced with these, right? And by the way, there's a lot more folders here, you know. So John is using, and the team is using this for all kinds of stuff, you know, graphics. So there's a graphic struct that says whether the game's going to be windowed or vsynced or MSAA. You have gameplay settings, folder, right? It'll map that to the struct and then give values as needed, right? So that's all well and good. Okay. I'm pretty sure if I go to main, I can find more info. Where the heck am I? Okay. Source and main. Yeah. Yeah, there they are. I've studied this before, so I mostly understand it. But I need to go more in depth with you guys for my own sake, so I can integrate it into Blockman more easily, right? Okay. So add value folder. Where does that come from? Don't worry, guys. I'm gonna explain what's going on in just a second. I just need to understand myself before I explain it to other people. Add value folder. That must come from. Yeah, there it is. Cool beans. And there's the struct. Okay. And then what about reload? Yeah, there it is. Okay. Oh, Ignacio has also worked on this. So it's not hasn't been just John. Ignacio, a dear senior programmer, has worked on this. Cool. So credit goes to the Sokoban team. All right. Okay. So I'm gonna explain what's going on. You have this struct. Remember gameplay visuals, right? Let's just quickly gameplay visuals, right? Top left here. That's also a struct, right? So what's happening with this function is called add value folder, right? So again, the .variables format admits of this notion of a folder called gameplay visuals, and the folder will map onto the struct, right? And it's a folder of values, right? So you have all these values down here that will also map to the struct, you know, the struct fields in this case. So so the function or the procedure add value folder says that's the Sokoban engine saying, hey, I'm going to register the gameplay visual struct in order to map it with this file, right? So that's what's going on. Add value folder means register the struct. So when I do load the file, you immediately poke values into the struct with the ones on the file. Okay? I'm getting some questions that may or may not be answered a little later. Oh, I got some for loop questions. That's gonna have to wait. Um, we could maybe do a special stream next time about unanswered questions. Like this sounds pretty basic. I'm not sure I covered it on my language basic stream then. And I got emails too. Some of the emails have to do with questions like this, so maybe I can just like cover it up together and do a stream just on user questions from 2018 and early 2019, something like that. So um, here's an on-topic question though. Hotspur, does this scheme support versioning, or is that trivial enough to be left to users? I'm pretty sure there's versioning here too, and we'll take a look at that in just a second. But back to this. So add value folder registers the struct in order to poke values taken from this file, right? Now, when does that poking of values, happen? It happens down here. Hopefully you can see it and my head's not blocking you. Hold on. It's almost blocking you. Hold on, let me scroll down. There we go. This one. So reload variables is part of the same module as add value folder. And it's saying, okay, we're going to reload variables, the file's called all, and here's the location, data/all.variables, which is true. You'll be able to see it here, right? The working directory of Sokoban is run tree, therefore data will contain this, which is perfect. Now my question is, because I'm going to borrow this, I am going to borrow this. Where do these procedures live, right? I want those. I want them. Well, whatever sounds like variables, man. Whatever sounds like variables. Variables in Java. They're much more fun than C++ and always will be like that. Hey. There it is. var.jai. Yep. I was there earlier. I was literally there earlier. Okay, so add value folder, reload variables. Excellent. Does this depend? This depends on another thing. Hold on. Yeah. So I'm a little familiar with Sokoban code base because I've been in there before to fix one or two things. Very little involvement, but I've done a couple fixes. So start file, consume next line. All of that comes from the text file handler. So I think we're going to be stealing two files today, ladies and gentlefish. It's literally called text file handler. Yeah, there it is. Yep, there's start file. And we're not gonna like ignore what's in there. We're gonna try and study a little bit of what's happening. But to somebody's question earlier, do version number. You see, there are versions allowed. Yeah. And in fact, I believe they also have this thing where you can tag a struct. Let me see how that happens. Sokoban. It's not in there. But let's go back to gameplay visuals. You can even do something like this. I'm not sure we need this for Blobman, but you can do something like at var. So this little note will be used to determine whether or not this struct's member is allowed to be poked into by a .variables file, right? So like if it's not tagged as at var, then a user is not allowed to mess with that value through a file. Make sense? And then there's also versioning happening. I don't think we're gonna need versioning either. So Blotman's gonna be simplified. We're not gonna do versioning and we're not gonna do tagging of members because I'm gonna allow people to just play with the struct willy-nilly, touch every part of the struct. So okay, so let's steal those. Quit. Oops, don't save anything. Quit. Okay, here we go. Beautiful. CP, not CPR, although it is CP-R. Source, what do we need? I said vars.jai. And then we're gonna move that over to Blotman, right? Sweet, sweet. Wait, so dash R isn't a good idea because I don't have to recurse. You can't recurse a single source file, right? I'm used to I'm used to borrowing entire folders. I'm used to borrowing large swaths of folders. Uh, Text file handler, was it? Yeah. Sounds good. And then we can create the dot variables files ourselves, right? So, yeah. Nope. Oops, oops. Blotman. Awesome. Excellent. Okay. I think we should start actually by copying vars.jai and text file handler and moving those to a variables folder. Okay, a variables test folder, because I want to make sure that I understand how this works before integrating it into Blotman, right? Like I said, I've messed with this stuff before. I've studied it before, but I haven't done integration in a video game, right? All right, so we're gonna copy examples, Blotman source, vars, and examples, Blotman source, and text file handler, right? And then we're gonna touch main.jai, touch, and just get to work, right? Let's see if we can poke our own structs. 16. So I know vars already imports text file handler, so I can just do this, and I'll get everything I need. Let's import some basic functionality like printing and whatever. Okay. All right, so we need a struct in which we can poke values from using a file. So let's call it the friendship struct, right? All right. And then we're gonna see who's my best friend on Twitch, who is my friend on Twitch, and who is my frenemy on Twitch. Right? Sound good? Sweet. Actually, we don't need to do this because we're gonna put in some values in there. Let's take a look at the chat. Sasuke! Oh! Oh! Yes, you've always been my best friend on Twitch. You've been giving so many questions and being so helpful. You somehow land on my folders and on my files all the time. I think I even made a commit, and you appear in everybody's commit history. Your name's in there somehow. So, for sure. All right. Then we're gonna put in just my regular friend. I like Boolean's been pretty cool too. He's been asking interesting questions and keeping me on my toes. It's all good. And then let's see. There was somebody I didn't like very much at some point. Was it Jesse Coyle? No, I'm not sure. Who did I just like find myself a little angry with? Xanatos maybe? Ryan Fleury maybe? You know what? I'm gonna put cancel FM because at some point I tried to do a chat application, like cancel FM's amazing ripcord application, and I gave that up after I started working for John. I'd love to go back to that, but if ripcord just is successful, then I'm not gonna focus on chat apps ever again. So, all right. Is he gone? Oh well. You can let him know that he's my tongue-in-cheek frenemy on Twitch. All right. So, cool. And just like Sokoban, we say friend, friendship, or maybe like friendships. Okay, that's all well and good. And just to show off, Jai's cool way of printing stuff, literally just one percentage sign, one argument, regardless of the type. We compile that. Uh-oh. Oops, yeah, because import is reserved for system modules. This is a local file. What? What? Oh, I see. Oh man, I gotta do the copy again. You can see that I'm trigger happy with compiler bugs because I'm always reporting or addressing compiler bug reports, right? Those have been going down though. Crashes have been going down very, very fast. Like Sokoban is a full-fledged 3D game that's come really far along on Jai, experimental language with very little crashes for the past 6 months. So the whole fuzzer work, thankfully, and all the tests that I've been doing and working with Josh too, who's pretty awesome with backends. All right, Blotman source Farside Jai examples Blotman source text file handler Jai. All right, do we have those files now? Why not? What am I doing wrong? Why? What am I missing? Oh, a period. I'm missing one period. There we go. Why is that working? Let's see. Mismatching levels of indirection. Wanted void giving string. That doesn't sound right. Huh. Do I need that freeing? Probably don't. There's been a lot of changes in the modules because we're improving the modules as we learn how to use the language and make games and programs. We're like, oh, the module needs this and that, and then we change parameter lists, and then function calls that rely on a type of a parameter is no longer matching, right? So what line is that? 172. And you see why also we don't release the language just yet, because we want to make sure that as we write programs ourselves, we update the modules and the libraries based on that information, right? And then when you get the modules and for your programs, it's like a robust set of modules and libraries that has been battle tested, right? It just sucks for streams because then we get stuck here. 172. Okay. So this is not the file. It's Farside Jai. What the heck? Oh, it's coming from the modules log.jai. Fascinating. Well, we don't need to log that way, right? So who's calling log? Who is calling log? Okay. Well, we can ignore logging. Yeah, I'm cool with that. It looks like they were already ignoring logging too for some reason. So. Oh my god. Now what's going on now? Undeclare identify advanced vector string. Could it be that I'm just missing? It could be that I'm missing something like string. It could be that I'm missing what else? Math. Okay. And okay, this is fine. I'm cool with these updates. So we're in the process now of integrating Sokoban source code to a sample program and then move that over to Blotman, right? So panel location is a struct that belongs to Sokoban, and we don't need that. Text file handler should be available. It's just that I don't think we've loaded it in. So load, we can load it on main or we can load it right here. I'm gonna do it right here because main doesn't need it directly. Myotatsu, by missing the period when you did the CP, you overwrote the second file with the first. Really? No! Why? You're right. You're right about that. Yeah. You basically you copy when you copy from a source directory to a destination. Um, that can be used as yeah. Let me hold on. But nothing's wrong with these files, right? Yeah. So text file handler is now fars.jai, which we absolutely do not want. Thank you for that. Blotman source, text file handler here. Okay, and then let's try that again. Uh-oh. So it looks like I did the same thing with Blotman. So, wow. That's a very good catch, Miotatsu. Hold on. Hold your horses. Hold your horses. Hold your horses. Goodbye, Long Boolean. And hello, Miotatsu. There we go. All right. Okay, so Sokoban, source, vars, and then I like you, Long Boolean. You know, I'm just joking around. Vars.jai, and then we put that here properly, right? Well, let's hold on. Vars.jai. Yeah, we'll put that here properly for now. And then we'll do the same for text file handler. Okay. Okay. Yep, there it is. It's back. It's back. Thanks again. Thanks again. Vars.jai. Vars.jai is what it is. Okay. Ooh, oh boy. Oh boy. Okay. Now this is more of what I'm expecting, right? So math is fine. We do need file, maybe just file utilities. And then text file handler is good. Vars is the thing that needs to be updated because we want to load in text file handler in here. This is very basic, by the way. I'm having a lot of trouble for something very basic. That's how streams go. And then whatever log print is calling, we want to comment that out. Yeah, we don't need that. Okay, try again. Oh, right. So panel location, where is that? Panel location, we don't need you necessarily. This is a very Sokoban specific thing, and we don't need it. Okay, try again. It's probably being called in multiple places. Yeah, here too. Okay, goodbye. Excellent. Anyone need it? Anybody else? Anybody else? Yeah, you. Panel location. Actually, panel could even be a holdover from the witness, right? And we're using it for Sokoban. Oof. What is this? This is just an if check. Okay. A very elaborate if check. So we can get rid of this too. There we go. All right. Okay, cool. And then 326. Well, IDs is being, it's not being used by anybody. That's what Vim tells me. Search hit bottom. Comment that out. Okay, who else is using it? 426. Comment that out. I'm also being very presumptuous that I'm not going to make parsing mistakes. Hooray! Here we go. All right, and so we're printing friendship. If you could print friendship in life. You have Sasuruka, you have Myotatsu, and you have cancel FM. And those are default values, right? So let's go back to, let's get rid of this. Let's get rid of this. Let's open up main again. Here we go. All right. Yeah, we were printing friendship. Let's set the size to 16, as always. All right. Da, da, da. Sasuke, sometimes wonder whether the amount of alcohol Anna consumes during streams given his excitement. uh, ask people who know me in real life, like Alan Webster. I'm like this, sober or otherwise. Okay. So so this is working. There we go. Cool. Cool. So now we want to do this. We want to be able to update our values through a file, right? So let's do that. Let's make a data folder. Let's go inside data, and then we're gonna touch all dot variables because that's what the Sokoban code that we borrowed is expecting, right? And then we're gonna add a folder to it, right? So all dot variable. Hold on. Data. All dot variables. Okay. So we're gonna have a folder called friendship. Our best friend. Okay. So what we want to do now, right, is take the values that you see. Oops. Take the values that you see here, and update them or poke values using our file, right? So we don't have to touch the code base for that. So we're gonna override Sasuke with somebody else, right? So I'm gonna promote Yotatsu to best friend because he really saved my caboose. Caboose? Goose? Kichikucha? He saved something. So best friend Yotatsu. And then we'll drop down Sasuke to friend. And our frenemy remains cancel FM. Right? There we go. Cool. So those are new values, right? So we should be seeing something different. I would say after we add the code that will do this job, right? So before printing friendships, we're gonna do a few things. We're gonna call add value folder, right? I don't remember the signature for that, so we're gonna open up var/jai for that. Okay, add value folder. It takes a folder pointer. That's interesting. And now this is one thing that's cool about Jai, right? So notice here that folder pointer is some type that is not determined just yet, right? So if we had another function, so let's say we had something much more basic like, I don't know, our procedure, right? Something of some kind, very abstract, takes a parameter, an argument A of type some type, right? So let's move that over to main.jai because people need to know about this. Some people don't know about polymorphism in Jai, and I'm going to try to explain that here before we continue. So we have this procedure, right? Nothing is out of the ordinary except for the type of its parameter, right? $t. So $t is warning the compiler that the final type will be determined by some future argument, right? Ooh, some mysterious argument. And typically, that future argument is found out when the procedure is getting called, right? So like, again, let's comment all of this out just for a little bit, just to explain polymorphism real quick, the basics of procedural polymorphism, just the basics. So what you do is, let's say we have some kind of argument, let's say A0, and it's a float 32, right? And it's going to be like 12.12.34, right? And then we call our procedure and we pass in A0, right? So when the compiler is compiling this procedure, it's like, okay, $t is going to be some future, it's going to be, its type will be determined by some future argument, right? By the way, t can be anything else. It's just a convention for us at the company, but t could be some type, right? Or any string of legal characters past the $sign. Any string, right, of legal characters can be understood to be, okay, you're talking about some future type, right? And then we can reference that some type later, like down here, right? So if you want to declare B, a local B, and we can say some type, and it'll know that it'll be the type of this thing, which will be determined down here by our procedure, right? So the chaining here works is you call our procedure, you pass in A0, the compiler will know, oh hey, yeah, you had tagged this to be something that I don't know about yet, but now that you're calling our procedure with A0, I can infer that the parameter list type is going to be float32, and so B's local variable will also be float32, right? But if I throw in a wrench in there and say that A1 is an int, and I call A1, the compiler will go back to this parameter list and be like, oh, so it's some other thing. And now we're talking about int. So on the second call of our procedure, then we're talking about an int, right? And what happens is that behind the scenes, usually, because you can change this, you have the power to change this, which is awesome about Jai. What's going to happen is behind the scenes, this one procedure definition will have code generated for the different versions to handle the different types that you passed in through the arguments, right? And by the way, like some type isn't constrained to just figuring out its type by calling a function. You can do other things, like right? You can bake values using bake directives and stuff like that. So just keep that in mind. And now we return to our regular programming, and we go back to all that. We go back to vars.jai. Okay, so add value folder is what I was trying to call here, because I want to register friendships. I want my friendships to be registered by the state, and you can only do that by calling add value folder, right? So we're registering this struct to be able to have values poked into it with the .variables file. So add value folder is actually, determining its type based on the struct type, which is great because that means add value folder now works for an arbitrary number of structs who have different types, and it'll work with just one function, right? It's actually a pointer to some type to be determined in the future. It's a pointer to it, which is important. Base folder, we don't need to deal with that. And tagged only, that has to do, the typed only argument has to do with if I did this, right? Remember at var to say ignore all the fields except those tagged by var. We're not going to do that. We're going to allow people to override all these values using a .variables file. Override name, we're also going to ignore that. Don't worry about it. So hopefully that makes sense. We're registering friendships, and we're going to see what happens. Just make sure that compiles. Oh boy. Oh yeah, it has to be a pointer. I'm like, compiler, internal compiler error. Yep, there we go. If we call main, we still get the default values that you saw here. Sasuruka is still my best friend, which we already said was false. Friend is Miyotatsu, which I already said he was going to be my best friend. And for some reason, he's not my best friend yet. And cancel FM remains my friend to me. That's okay. So what happened? Well, what happened is we registered the struct, but we didn't tell our program to poke values using the .variables file, right? How do you do that? Well, you call reload variables, right? I think I already explained that earlier. So reload variables, this is when you do it. The reason we do it separately should be clear now. I mean, it actually should be pretty awesome. Hold on. Data variables. So this is how we control what we're reloading. So we could technically call all .variables something else, right? .variables, right? Anyway, So the reason this is separate is because that means you can reload variables multiple times across your program, which can sometimes be nice. Because you can have a thread, right? Blockman can fire off a thread that'll be watching for changes in the dot variables file, and then call reload variables to repoke struct values. Stuff like that. If you have a server and your server is running a set of recurrent tasks, then at the start of a recurrent task or at the end of it, you can call reload variables to update the administrator's server settings to run tasks in a different way without recompiling the whole server, right? You're just modifying a very simple .variables file. This is another example, right? So in theory, we can end this stream knowing that we have updated struct values, right? I'm not gonna end the stream until Blockman has these two functions working, right? But we can basically end the stream saying that we understand what's going on. Yay! So best friend is Mutatsu now. Exactly what I was expecting. Okay? And if we make my best friend somebody else, let's say, data, Strustrup, then without recompiling the program, it is Strustrup. Any questions? Star soup. Yeah. Yeah. I should have said that. Strustrup. Cool beans. So let's go back to Blockman, right? Now that we know basically how this works, we're gonna go back to Blockman, and hopefully I won't call CP wrong here, right? So variables test. Hello. Variables test. Vars.jai. Variables test text file handler, and I shouldn't be doing that. It's just I can do multiple targets and then the destination, right? I'm not thinking clearly right now, but just to be safe, right? Just to be safe, we'll do it in two separate calls. All right. Cool. So we got our things. They work properly because we got rid of Sokoban specific stuff. And so theoretically, if I go to Blockman's main.jai, right? Which is here, and I load vars.jai, it should just work. We'll put it here, vars.jai, right? Fingers crossed. Excellent. Yep. And the game should still run. Nothing bad happened. Here's the game, right? Hooray. Hooray. Let's go ahead and make our, what do we have? Let's go inside run tree. We're gonna svn add data. Wait, I already have data, don't I? I do. Okay, so we see the into data. We have Carmina font used everywhere in our company. Everywhere. We're gonna svn, hold on. We're gonna touch an all.variables file, right? We're gonna modify it real quick. Just to add a comment. Values to update at will at runtime, right? Excellent. And then we're gonna svn add that. And on the next stream, folks, on the next stream, we're gonna start looking at all of our structs that Blockman uses. Okay, we're gonna register those through the procedures that we saw, Sokoban style. and then we're gonna start choosing which values we're gonna change. We're gonna add new structs, and we're gonna add new ways of editing the game that will just make it easier if we can have like a running thread that just uploads or reloads this file as needed. So that could be like a second feature. So first we register our structs as they are that we need. We make new ones if needed based on our to-do list, right? And then maybe later we can make a thread that just reloads the file when the text changes. But even as it is, I feel like this is going to be a win because we don't have to hunt down all the hard-coded constants that I have on the game, on the code right now, right? So this was worth in my opinion, this was worth the effort of understanding somebody else's code base, getting inspired by it, borrowing it because you're allowed to, because you work for the same place that they do, and you want to save them money, right? And using it for our example. So create all that variables for Plotman Jai Wednesday stream. Sounds good to me. All right. It is the original Blotman. In fact, yeah, you missed the serialization thing, Jackmot. As always, the stream will be archived, and you can sort of take a look at what happened. The internals of like calling the API procedures that I called, like reloading the file and like parsing the structure, the dot variables file, and the way we poke values into the struct. I only showed like very basics of polymorphism there, but we use the any type, and the any type is a uniquely Jai construct, right? That's being used in order to be able to write into struct values without like breaking stuff if it's incorrect, right? So we have some pretty good type checking of the values. So for example, if we have something like blob man speed, right, and then we say this garbage, then that type of thing should be able to be picked up by the serialization routine, right? It's a lot simpler to do in Jai because you have a way to speak about these things in the language, right? So the any type, like I said, polymorphism using the same syntax as the language, stuff like that. So when you have default struct values, right? So if something fails to parse, you're going to have your default struct values that were defined at struct declaration time anyway, right? So yeah. Cool beans. I'll see you guys next time. Next Wednesday, we're gonna start using this new feature to crack down on our to-do list. What people said about Blotman being Pac-Man, it absolutely is not, especially when we have a theme and art direction crowdfunded through the Twitch stream, right? Where's the theme? Where is that? Blotman theme to be replaced with thief collecting treasure from museum. So, and that treasure, I think, is just going to be art, right? So art panels is a good candidate here. I think Alan, I've been talking about Alan today for some reason. So he was, he gave me the idea of the thief is running around. He has a bag or a sack, and he's just quickly throwing, art panels inside the bag, right? So that sounds like a fun thing to do as well. So Tekla's legal team uses handmade contracts, so it's the best. No. I do work on the docs, and I am planning to work on the language spec this year of 2019. Just like a very rough draft. Because of my work at NASA, I did a lot of procedural things that have to do with being very rigorous about documentation or technical tests and stuff like that. So, see you next Wednesday!